Let's talk about the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, the M2 version. Right, cards on the table. I have absolutely no idea what to do with this M2 iPad Pro. This thing cost me £1,249. I do have to buy these myself. I don't get sent them by Apple. And that's a lot of money anyway for an iPad, but it's an awful lot of money for an iPad that you don't have a use for. The problem is that I've turned myself into a tech reviewer, and more importantly, I cover mainly Apple stuff, which means I need to cover these devices. But what if I can't think of a single angle, experiment, point of interest, or narrative worth exploring? That's why I haven't got this out of the box, and I'm not going to. It's going straight back to Apple. This might annoy you, you might be clicking away straight away. I don't blame you if that's the case, to be honest, but I do have some explaining to do. Every week I receive a comment from some knuckle-dragging, sweaty-palmed troll that goes something like this. They'll say, "Oh, that ad read was way too long, you're clearly just doing this for the clicks and the cash." Now normally I ignore those cretins and get on with my life, but sometimes I can't help it, I just have to reply and explain that I'm actually running a business here. I'm really proud of this brand, I'm really proud of Mark Ellis Reviews, and I love it. It's the best job I've ever had in my entire life. But it is a job, it is a business. I'm not just doing this for fun. Therefore, I spend most of my time, apart from creating this content, thinking like a business owner, because that's what I am. And I get sent a lot of stuff to review. A lot of free products end up on my doorstep, which is a lovely thing. I'm in a very privileged position to get that. But when it comes to Apple, I have to buy every single Mac, iPad, Apple Watch, iPhone, accessory, everything I want to cover that is based around Apple, I have to buy. That means I have to budget for it and have the cash available. The problem is that when something like this comes along, which takes such a big chunk of that budget, £1,249 is a lot of money. It has to fight very hard for a reason to end up in this studio. And that's particularly the case when I need to invest money in other things. At the moment, I need a second camera, I need some new audio gear, and as long as one arrives next month or in December, I need a new Mac Mini for a project that I can't wait to tell you about. Now, all of those items, and a lot more besides, have a very defined reason and purpose for coming into this studio and being part of this business. This doesn't. There's no reason for me to have this iPad. But there's a bigger issue here, I think. There's always going to be a place for spec-based and benchmark-based reviews on YouTube. I'm a massive admirer of the people that do that. They are so far ahead of me in terms of their technical knowledge. And they provide a very important service for consumers and for business owners who take an interest in that stuff. But I think tech reviews are changing. I think audiences are getting smarter. Not that they weren't smart before. You guys are far more smart than me, don't get me wrong. But I do think you know what's going on quite often behind the scenes in these channels. You can spot a dedicated sponsor review before it's even mentioned, and you know when a review has been unfairly influenced by the brand it's covering. And I think that's one of the reasons that tech reviewers like myself need to up our game. It's not enough just to sit here and read off specs and talk about benchmarks. You can go and find that stuff now immediately elsewhere. It's also not enough just to keep doing these comparisons between two competing brands and competing products. I do it, admittedly, I'll keep doing it, and it is an important point of reference, but I don't think it's the main factor for people's buying decisions. And more importantly, if we're just doing spec reads and benchmarks and comparisons, we're not really holding these manufacturers fully to account. Consumers demand enjoyment and value from their tech, whereas business owners like myself want the best possible return on investment. That's why I've always tried to focus as much as I can on the way technology makes me feel and that almost intangible thing that makes it a good buy or a bad buy. And this new iPad Pro is a great example of a product that I think is almost unreviewable. The differences between this version and the 2018 version that I have in my cupboard over there barely being used are negligible. It's got a better camera, better display, but both of those things are, again, fairly negligible, and the chip in here, none of us can really make use of. I genuinely don't know how to review this product, I don't know how to test it, and the last thing that I'm going to do is unbox it for you, show you what you've already seen in terms of the design, and then try that hover mode thing for the Apple Pencil for a few seconds. What's the point in that? I appreciate that this might not be enough for you, and I appreciate that this is probably not the sort of video that you're used to seeing from me, but I don't want to make a review for the sake of it. And again, to be completely honest with you, I can't be bothered to invest time that I don't really have in DaVinci Resolve. At the moment, that's the only video editing platform on this iPad, which is ludicrous and embarrassing when Apple has Final Cut Pro itself. Me learning how to use DaVinci Resolve just to make a video to show what this iPad can do doesn't make sense. It's not a normal use case for me. I don't think it's kind of revealing anything, and it's not answering the question that I have about these iPad Pros, which is when is Apple going to pull its finger out and give us their own Pro apps? I'm going to make a promise though, because although this is 100% going back to Apple later today, I promise that when they launch something, whether it be a newer version of this or ideally an app that I've been talking about, Final Cut Pro, once that arrives, I will rebuy this iPad. I'll spec it up as much as I need to, I'll get all the accessories that I need, and I'll throw it into this production process, use it day in, day out, and tell you exactly how it performs. You have my word. And just a very quick review and piece of buying guidance for this iPad Pro M2 edition. If you have a iPad Pro that is older than 2018, so if you bought one before then, or if you don't have an iPad Pro at all and you want one, get one. These will be fantastic iPads. If, like me, you've bought an iPad Pro after 2018, don't bother. Save your money, use it for something else. I'm waiting, Tim. In the meantime, I'm going to pop this in the post, and just to make things a little bit worse for you, I'm going to point you guys in the direction of my recent review of the 10th generation iPad, which is Apple's, or one of Apple's, weirdest ever products. Keep watching for my full review.